Elon, you need to see this. Clara's voice broke through the silence of Tesla's headquarters as she stood at the doorway. Her face was unusually grave, clutching a tablet tightly against her chest. Without looking up, Elon muttered, "If it's not about Mars, it can wait." "It's not about Mars," Clara replied, her voice soft yet serious, as though she understood the weight carried by her words. "It's about someone who sees you as their hero." That caught his attention. Elon looked up, his sharp gaze now tinged with curiosity. Clara said no more. She walked in, placed the tablet on his pristine desk, and pressed play. The light from the screen illuminated their faces, casting a frozen stillness over the room. On the screen was a young girl lying in a hospital bed. Her pale skin and bald head, wrapped in a bright pink scarf, stood in stark contrast to her frail face. Yet, her eyes sparkled, and her soft but unwavering voice broke the silence in the room. "Hi, Mr. Musk," she began, her voice faint but steady. "My name is Lisa, and I'm 9 years old. My dream is to go to Mars. But the doctors say I won't live long enough to see it happen. But that's okay." Lisa paused, a weak smile spreading across her face. "I just have one wish. I want to meet you. Even if it's just for a hug." The video ended, leaving the screen frozen on Lisa's radiant yet fragile smile. The air in the room seemed to drain away, leaving only the sound of Elon's heavy breathing. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the screen. Lisa's smile, despite its fragility, carried a strange, undeniable strength, as if it had transcended time and space to reach something deep within him. "Is this real?" Elon asked, his voice hoarse, barely above a whisper. Clara nodded, her expression softening but still heavy with concern. "Lisa's mother sent this video through a charity organization. Lisa has terminal cancer. She doesn't have much time left." The words cut through Elon like a blade, slicing through the layers of his usual stoicism. He sat motionless for a moment, his hands clenching the edges of the desk as if bracing against the weight of the moment. Seconds stretched into eternity before he exhaled deeply, his voice now resolute. "How soon can we make this happen?" Clara looked at him, noticing something shift in his eyes, a determination beyond calculation or scientific pursuit. For the first time, Elon wasn't just looking out into the stars, he was looking directly at the present reality before him. He had no idea that the answer to his question would not only change the life of a little girl but also transform his own, a journey not toward Mars, but into the depths of his own heart. Elon was on his way to the airport. The car glided silently through the empty streets, but his mind was anything but quiet. As the driver navigated the still roads, Elon found himself trapped in a loop of thoughts. The video of Lisa replayed over and over in his head. Her voice, her unwavering hope, it had touched something deep within him. He had been called a hero many times before, but this was different. It was a pressure no amount of success or wealth could ease. When the car stopped in front of the private jet, Clara, sitting beside him, broke the silence. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "You're already a hero in her eyes. Even if you don't go, Lisa will still think of you that way." Elon didn't respond immediately. He stepped out of the car, the brisk night air biting at his face. Standing at the base of the jet's stairs, he turned back to Clara. "She deserves more than just an image of me," he said. "She deserves something real." Inside the jet, the steady hum of the engines provided a rhythm to Elon's restless thoughts. He hated sitting still during flights. The confined space left him alone with his mind. And tonight, those thoughts were unbearable. "What if I let her down?" he muttered. the words hanging in the air. Directed at no one in particular. "You won't," Clara replied from across the cabin. She was holding her tablet. Perhaps catching up on emails. But her voice was sincere. "You don't need to perform or prove anything. She just wants to meet you. And that's exactly what makes it so hard." Elon responded. Sitting but leaning forward. His elbows on his knees. "People see me as this larger-than-life figure. To Lisa. I'm not just Elon Musk, I'm the man who made Mars possible. What if I don't live up to her expectations?" Clara closed her tablet and looked at him directly. "Have you ever thought that Lisa's expectations aren't what you think they are? She's not asking you to bring Mars to her. She just wants a hug. She just wants to meet you." The words hit Elon harder than he expected. He had spent his life chasing the extraordinary. Building visions of the future. But he had rarely stopped to consider the power of simply being present. Elon glanced out the window again. His faint reflection visible against the dark sky. 4 years. He had envisioned humanity reaching for the stars. But now, for the first time, those stars felt personal. "You know," Clara said after a long pause, "I don't think it's about what you say or do. I think just showing up might be the most heroic thing you've ever done." Elon gave her a small nod. But the tension in his jaw remained. The jet began its descent. The city lights below twinkling like scattered constellations. The hospital was only minutes away now. As the wheels touched down, Elon realized this wasn't just a flight to meet Lisa, it was a journey into the unknown. And he wasn't sure if he was ready for what awaited him. The hospital loomed ahead. Its flickering fluorescent lights casting a subdued and somber glow in the pre-dawn hours. Clara followed a step behind Elon, clutching her tablet tightly to her chest. Her face was a mix of apprehension and determination. As though she could feel the weight of the task ahead. A nurse led them through sterile, silent hallways. Their whiteness almost blinding. The sound of their footsteps echoed sharply, breaking the stillness like each breath was carefully measured. They arrived at Lisa's room. The door stood out brightly, adorned with handmade drawings of rockets, planets, and a wobbly but endearing rendition of the SpaceX logo. A small plaque on the door read, "Lisa's Space Adventures." Elon hesitated, his gaze lingering on the door with a flicker of uncertainty. Clara touched his arm gently, her voice soft but firm. "She's been waiting for this moment." Elon took a deep breath, as if summoning all his courage, and pushed the door open. The room was small but brimming with life, though the vibrancy came more from hope and imagination than reality. The walls were covered with posters of constellations and Mars rover schematics. A small telescope sat near the window, its lens pointed toward the dim night sky. On the table beside the bed lay a small notebook labeled Mission Log, its pages filled with scribbled notes and drawings. At the center of it all was Lisa, propped up against her pillows. Her frail frame seemed to radiate an inner light. Her familiar pink scarf was wrapped snugly around her head, and her face lit up like a spark catching fire the moment she saw Elon. "Mr. Musk," Lisa whispered, her voice soft but filled with awe. Elon knelt beside her bed, his eyes locking onto hers. A gentle smile played on his lips. "You must be Lisa," he said warmly, his voice deep and soothing. "I hear you're a big fan of Mars." Lisa giggled softly, the sound delicate but pure. "Yes. I've been practicing for zero gravity. Look." She raised her tiny arms and mimicked floating, her laughter filling the room like a melody. "Do you think I could be a good astronaut?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with hope. Elon chuckled softly, his gaze filled with both admiration and emotion. "I think you'd be one of the best astronauts ever," he replied. "But astronauts have to promise to train hard." Lisa extended her pinky, her determination shining through her small, frail frame. Promise? For a moment, Elon hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. Then, swallowing the lump in his throat, he linked his pinky with hers. Promise. They spent hours together, talking about rockets, probes, and the journey to Mars. Lisa eagerly opened her mission log, showing Elon the pages filled with detailed plans and drawings of herself in a spacesuit, standing proudly next to a SpaceX rocket. Elon held the notebook, his fingers tracing the shaky lines on the pages. His chest tightened with a surge of emotion. "You've thought of everything," he said, his voice thick. "You'd make an amazing mission commander." Lisa's face glowed, her smile as bright as the stars she dreamed of. "Do you think I'll really get to Mars one day?" she asked, her question piercing Elon's heart like an arrow. Looking into her clear, hopeful eyes, Elon's voice softened, steady with conviction. "I think you've already been there." Lisa. Their conversation was interrupted when Lisa's mother appeared at the door. Her face lined with exhaustion but softened with relief. Her hands trembled slightly as she stepped into the room. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly, her voice trembling with emotion. "You've made her happier than I've ever seen." Elon rose and walked toward her, his expression sincere. "Your daughter is extraordinary," he said. "I'm the lucky one to have met her." Lisa's mother smiled through her tears. "She wrote this for you," she said, handing him a small envelope. "She wanted you to have it." Elon took the envelope, feeling its weight even before he opened it. He glanced back at Lisa, who now rested her head against the pillows, her smile tired but content. As he slipped the envelope into his pocket, Elon knew this moment would stay with him forever. At the hotel, what he didn't know was just how much it would outside the window like distant stars. But Elon's mind was firmly tethered to the present. He sat by the window, an unopened envelope in his hand, his gaze unfocused as it drifted toward the night sky. Over the years, he had received hundreds, perhaps thousands, of letters from admirers. Each one carried words of gratitude and admiration for his work and vision. But this small envelope, he knew, was unlike anything he had ever received before. Taking a deep breath, he opened the envelope, carefully pulling out the paper inside. The handwriting was shaky but neat, each word meticulously chosen, carrying the weight of a small heart brimming with hope. "Dear Mr. Musk, thank you for making my dream come true. Meeting you was the happiest day of my life. When you go to Mars, please take a part of me with you. Even if I can't go myself, I want to be part of the journey. Love, Lisa." Elon stared at the letter, feeling his chest tighten. Of all the achievements he had attained, of all the barriers he had broken, these simple words carried a weight greater than anything he had ever encountered. The next morning, Elon returned to the hospital. The atmosphere in Lisa's room had changed. The vibrant energy of the previous day had faded into a muted stillness. When Lisa saw him, she smiled, but it was faint and pale. Her cheeks were colorless, yet the light in her eyes remained undimmed. Elon sat down beside her bed, masking the concern that churned within him. He held up the notebook she had given him earlier, a gentle smile playing on his lips. "You've got quite the fan club," he teased lightly. "I had to fight Clara to keep this." Lisa laughed softly, the sound as delicate as a breeze. "That's my mission log," she said, her voice tinged with pride. "Every astronaut needs one." He nodded, his expression turning serious. "This is the best mission log I've ever seen," he said earnestly. Lisa tilted her head slightly, her tiny hands clutching the edge of her blanket. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face before she asked, Mr. Musk, why do you want to go to Mars? The question caught Elon off guard. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Because Mars is a second chance, he finally said. His tone steady. It's hope. A way to make sure humanity survives. No matter what happens to Earth. Lisa stared at him. Her clear, innocent eyes seeming to pierce through his thoughts. It's about dreaming big. Isn't it? She said softly. Elon smiled. A rare and tender expression. Maybe it is, he replied. She nodded. Her small hands fiddling with the edge of the blanket as if summoning courage. Mr. Musk. Can I ask you one more thing? Anything. Elon said without hesitation. Lisa hesitated for a moment. Her eyes searching his. And then she finally asked. When you go to Mars, will you take me with you? The room seemed to freeze. Lisa's question hung in the air, carrying a gravity heavier than any rocket Elon had ever launched. He looked at her, his eyes softening with deep compassion. Leaning closer, his voice steady and gentle, he replied, I promise. Lisa, he said, his tone as soothing as a breeze. You'll be with us every step of the way. Lisa's eyes lit up, her smile returning. Weak yet radiant. Like the final flicker of a candle. Really, she whispered. Really. Elon affirmed, his gaze unwavering. You'll always be a part of Mars. As Lisa closed her eyes and drifted into sleep, Elon remained by her side, his hand holding hers. In that moment, he realized this promise was no fleeting pledge. It was a mission, a sacred duty, one he could not fail. The next morning, the hospital was quieter than usual. Elon noticed the difference the moment he stepped into the pediatric oncology ward. The hum of the machines was softer, and the nurses' voices were subdued. Lisa's mother met him at the door. Her eyes red but her gaze resolute. She was asking about you, she said softly. Then stepped aside to let him in. Lisa was propped up with pillows, her familiar pink scarf slightly askew on her head. She looked smaller today, her face pale, but her smile was as bright as ever. Hi, Mr. Musk, she whispered. Elon sat down beside her, gently taking her small hand in his. Hello, Commander Lisa, he said, forcing a smile. How's the mission log coming along? Lisa smiled faintly, her voice weak but clear. Almost ready for launch, she said, a note of pride in her tone. But I wanted to give you something first. Lisa's mother handed her a small piece of paper, folded neatly into the shape of a star. With trembling hands, Lisa extended it toward Elon. This is for you, she said, to take with you to Mars. Elon took the star carefully, feeling its delicate weight in his hands. The edges were uneven, the folds imperfect. But to him, it was the most precious thing he had ever held. Thank you, Lisa, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'll make sure it reaches Mars. Lisa's eyes sparkled. You promise? I promise, Elon said firmly. This star will go farther than any star has ever gone. For a moment, they sat in silence, the only sound the steady hum of the machines. Then Lisa looked at him, her expression serious. Mr. Musk, she said softly, I don't think I'll be here much longer. Elon's throat tightened. You'll always be here, Lisa, he said. Every time I look at the stars, I'll see you. Her smile returned, weak but radiant. Do you think people will remember me? She asked. Of course they will, Elon said. You're going to be part of something big. Something extraordinary. People will talk about you for generations. You've already made history. Lisa's eyes fluttered shut for a moment. Her breath shallow. When she opened them again, she whispered, "I'll be watching from the stars." Elon stayed by her side until she drifted off to sleep, her hands still clasped in his. When Lisa's mother entered the room, her face streaked with tears. Elon rose. He carefully placed the folded star in his pocket. As he left the room, he knew that Lisa's star wasn't just a symbol, it was a promise he would carry to the ends of the universe. The next morning, Clara received a call. Elon was sitting in his office, gazing out at the horizon as the sun rose. He had only slept a few hours. The folded paper star resting on the desk beside Lisa's letter. Clara's voice was gentle as she entered the room. "She passed away early this morning." The words hit Elon like a blow. He didn't move, his eyes fixed on the skyline. For a man who prided himself on solving the impossible, this was a truth he couldn't change. He exhaled deeply, stood, and slipped the star into his pocket. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. That afternoon, the soft sunlight filtered through the long windows of the hospital, casting shimmering shadows on the polished floors. Elon walked in, his face contemplative, his eyes fixed on the long corridor ahead. Lisa's mother sat in her usual chair in the waiting area, her posture weary yet resolute. Her hands rested on her lap, trembling slightly, as though accustomed to the endless wait. "She spoke about you until the very end," she said, her voice breaking yet strangely calm. "She said you gave her everything she ever dreamed of." Elon slowly sat down beside her, his eyes heavy with emotion. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small paper star, its fold still intact despite being carried close to him for days. He placed it on his palm, gazing at it as if it contained an entire universe. "She gave me this," he said softly, his voice faltering. "And I made her a promise." Lisa's mother covered her mouth, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. "She always believed in you," she said, her voice quivering yet steady. "She always said you could do anything." Elon gently placed a hand on her shoulder, a rare, heartfelt gesture from a man who often concealed his emotions. "She will always be a part of everything I do," he said, his gaze igniting with renewed determination. Back at SpaceX headquarters, Elon entered the design lab with purpose in every heavy step. The lab buzzed with the chatter of engineers, the hum of machines, and the glow of monitors illuminating the space. Amid the controlled chaos, Elon withdrew the paper star from his pocket, its folds glinting faintly under the white lights. "I need this to go to Mars," he said, his voice low but commanding, reverberating across the room. "It has to be part of the first mission." The engineers looked at him, their expressions a mix of confusion and profound respect. No one questioned the request. They understood that this wasn't just a personal decision but a promise carrying the weight of an unfulfilled dream. The star was carefully sealed within a specially designed compartment meant for keepsakes and messages to humanity's future. Over the following days, Elon worked tirelessly, spending countless hours in the control room, scrutinizing every detail of the mission. Every decision, every calculation bore the weight of Lisa's dream. To him, she wasn't just an inspiration but a poignant reminder of why this journey had begun. Weeks later, during a pre-launch press conference, a reporter asked about the personal items being sent on the Mars mission. Elon hesitated, a rare moment of pause. His eyes seemed to drift somewhere distant before he spoke. "A little girl named Lisa gave me something," he began, his voice steady but tinged with deep emotion. "She dreamed of going to Mars, but she couldn't make the journey herself. So, I'm taking her with us. She will always be a part of this mission." The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling like a blanket over the audience. On launch day, the sky was pristine, as if the universe itself was opening its arms to welcome humanity's vessel. Engineers and scientists worked with precision as the countdown ticked closer. Cameras from major news outlets focused on the towering rocket, its gleaming surface reflecting the sunlight. Elon stood in the control room, his gaze unwavering on the rocket through the reinforced glass. The paper star lay securely in its compartment, no longer just a keepsake but a symbol of a promise fulfilled. 30 minutes to launch, Clara said softly, her voice calm yet laden with significance. She had been uncharacteristically quiet all day, attuned to the weight of the mission. Elon nodded, his thoughts drifting to Lisa, the sound of her fragile laughter, her unyielding determination, and her boundless belief in dreams that transcended limits. She had taught him that even the smallest moments could reshape history. 10 minutes to launch, the launch director's voice echoed through the room. Elon closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. As the final seconds ticked down, he whispered, "This is for you, Lisa." The engines roared to life, their deafening sound shaking the ground. The rocket ascended, its fiery trail slicing through the sky like a shooting star. The control room erupted in cheers. But Elon stood still, watching until the rocket disappeared from view. Months later, the first Mars rover transmitted images back to Earth. Among them was a photograph of a small makeshift memorial within the habitat. Encased in glass was Lisa's paper star, alongside a plaque that read, "For Lisa, who dreamed of the stars and became one of them." The image went viral, inspiring millions. Children around the world began crafting their own stars, sending them to SpaceX with letters about their dreams of exploring space. Schools named projects after Lisa, and her story became a symbol of hope and the limitless power of imagination. Years later, Elon stood beneath the Martian sky. The red soil stretched endlessly before him, a testament to the dreams that he and countless others had fought to make real. But his eyes rested solely on the small paper star, its folds slightly worn but intact. "You made it, Lisa," he whispered, his voice barely audible in the thin Martian air. "We made it." And from a place far beyond Earth's reach, Lisa's star shone brighter than ever. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If the story resonates with you, help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. It's a big milestone that will motivate us to keep creating more useful content for you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.